Welcome, part 2 of Nosferatu. So, same week we saw Sonic 3 and Nosferatu. You can't get the. You thought Barbenheimer was pulling things. Holy God!
Y- Yeah, one film is like incredibly bright and colorful, and the other is just absolute dread and despair. Yeah, but we're gonna discuss Nosferatu today. We
Just like
saw it.
with Sonic, we'll kind of start off spoiler free and then transition into like just full on whatever goes. We'll provide a warning when that time comes, but like with Sonic, go see it. It's a good movie. You should go see Nosferatu. I don't know. Did Willem Dafoe, he pronounced it as Nosferatu, right? I'm pretty sure he did in the movie. Trying to
Yeah,
remember.
I mean, yeah, I think
I,
it takes a couple different forms.
I always
But
want to
yeah,
say Nosferatu for some reason.
that's just what I'm gonna say, Nosferatu.
I'm pretty sure it's nose, but whatever. Um, so, 102 years ago, the silent film Nosferatu was made, which was an unlicensed adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. They were sued over it by the Stoker family, and all copies were ordered destroyed. But they weren't. Some survived, and Nosferatu kind of re-emerged and even made it into memedom thanks to SpongeBob with their little Nosferatu moment. Super funny. Um, but now it's in the public domain, baby, so you can do whatever you want with Dracula. So we got a remake here, uh, made by our boy, what's his name, Roger Eggers? Edgers?
Robert
What's his name?
Robert Eggers.
I said
Yeah.
Roger.
So if you've
Robert.
seen Northman or The Witch or The
Yeah,
Lighthouse,
I've seen The
this
Norseman.
is him. Nice. I actually have not.
It's pretty
I have
good.
not seen that, which is funny because yeah, I think that I would probably enjoy it quite a bit. But you know, when you go into a film that's made by him, you kind of know what to expect, and I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I was kind of thirsting for like a vampire soap opera horror possession film kind of thing, and boy, that's exactly what I got. um I loved how dark that this film was. You know, we'll go through a few of the shots, but there are some just absolutely stunning photos, shots from this film. And you know, I have a couple concerns. You know, there were a few parts of the film that I thought dragged on a little too long. For the most part, I thought the film was a little bit too long.
I would
It
agree
could have
with
been
that.
shorter, for sure.
Yeah.
I think you probably could have cut off maybe 15 minutes, to be honest with you. Put it under 2 hours. But the soundtrack was great. The cinematography was great. Lily Rose Depp, her performance was incredible. There was a bunch of really challenging possession type film scenes for her that I'm sure were really demanding. I thought she did a really good job. As someone who absolutely thinks that The Exorcist is one of the best films of all time, possession films kind of a soft spot for me. And at the end of the day, this was kind of like a vampire love story possession film. And yeah, I loved this movie. I thought it was really good, and it definitely for sure my favorite Eggers film, for sure. And it might be my favorite film of the year, as a matter of fact. We'll have to work our way through that, but yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I was really into and ready for exactly what this film was, and it could it have done things to have ruined that, of course, but I did not think it did any of those things. The way that it handled the Count Orlok character, I absolutely loved. I thought that there was an aura about him where every time he was on screen, the film was better. I thought Bill Skarsgård did a great job with the voice. The way that the character moved throughout the film, I thought was haunting and dreadful and just great. And I also think that they did a really good job kind of balancing fanciful nature of vampires with staying grounded. There was a couple times where you could definitely tell that Orlok was using some of his vampiric abilities. I think that there's a scene in the first act of the film where Nicholas Holt's character gets into a carriage, and seemingly there's nobody guiding. And there's a scene when you see the carriage going, and there are a pack of dogs behind the carriage. And I think that later on in the film, you kind of realize, I think Orlok can kind of see things through the sight of the dogs, and I just thought that that was a really cool, like the symbology there. I thought was really, really good. But all in all, to just kind of wrap that part up, I loved the movie and I thought it was great, and I definitely want to see it again. A little bit dry at times, but all in all, I thought it was exactly what I wanted right now, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Categorically disagree. Block unsubscribe reported for harassment.
All good.
No, I liked it too. That said, I don't really seek these kind of movies out. Like, I'm not really a huge horror guy. Like, the horror movies I like are the more, like, kind of fantasy-driven ones. Like, you know, horror sci-fi. Things like Aliens, The Thing, creature features, basically. Which is kind of what this is, because I like Dracula. I definitely, you know, I've seen, like, the original Bela Lugosi Dracula a couple times, and whatever. Love the Netflix Castlevania show. This movie's Dracula. Like, it has all the story beats of Dracula, with some changes, and those changes are still the same changes they were for the original Nosferatu. But I generally don't go for, like, these, like, kind of really slow burn, atmospheric, what's the word I want to use here? Like, I don't know, really haunting kind of horror movies that have, like, a lot of lingering shots and, like, you know, stinging moments of people, like, freaking the hell out. Like, it's just not really my thing. Like, you talk about, like, Heredity as an example. Like, I would totally watch that with you, but, like, I am never going to, like, of my own volition watch Heredity. Like, it just is not my kind of thing. Which, like, this movie was giving me a lot of those kind of vibes. Which, it's fine, but not generally my thing. That said, you know, the cinematography of this movie, it's like it's a screensaver factory. Like, they just have, like, so many, like, really cool symmetrical or just beautiful shots, and then, like, all the actors, I think, did a great job with their roles. I think Nicholas Hoult just, like, has a talent for being terrified, because a lot of what he's like in this, he was also kind of like in Renfield from time to time, which makes me look more forward to him as Lex Luthor, because it's just polar opposite as what this movie is. So it'd be kind of cool to see him as more of a confident, authoritative person. And then Bill Skarsgård, man, just, like, disappeared into that role. Like, you'd have to tell me it was him. I would not have just known that. Like, it's pretty great. They did a good job.
Well, and me and my wife have watched it, part 1 and 2, more times than we can count. And so there were subtle signs that I looked at to kind of see, like, okay, yeah, that's Bill. No, they were not there. I assumed you would be able to tell around the eyes. Nope. Like, no. There was nothing at all.
For me, it's like his kind of cheekbones that I'm looking for, and, like, you just really can't see it. Like, I recognize the dude right away if I see him with no makeup or, like, limited makeup, but here you can't tell, man. Like, it's interesting.
So we'll work through the human cast, and then we'll make our way to kind of our thoughts on the Orlok character, the design, kind of that whole piece.
Is this spoilers now?
Do what?
Is this spoilers now or no?
Yes, we're gonna get into spoilers.
Spoilers. We're gonna get into spoiler warning. Go see still unlicensed but not illegal anymore Dracula.
Yes, go and see it. Movies like this need to be supported. As a big-time horror buff, it's critically important that movies like this do not flop.
You know what's actually
Now,
funny? I'll say this to that. It's something my grandfather said to me once. We were watching Aliens, and he kind of angrily said that this isn't a movie, this isn't a film, it's a movie. And that stuck with me, and I think that Aliens is a great movie, so shut up. But this is a film. So we're talking about like Sonic 3 and Nosferatu. Sonic 3 is a movie. It's a fun movie. But Nosferatu is an artistically driven film. Like, so I agree with you that it does deserve to be supported, because this is why film exists, is for stuff like this. So yes, agree 100%.
yeah. So starting at the top, Lily Depp, I thought she did a great job. There were a lot of really film.
Your audio's breaking up a ton. I can't even hear you.
Just a second.
We'll be right back after these messages. This video is sponsored by me, because I have to do it all. So just remember that I'm sponsoring it, and, give me money. Anyway, back to
the AC unit was going off in the garage, so I apologize for that. But yeah, I thought she did a great job. I thought that she played the kind of disturbed, sad, possessed woman. I thought she did a great job with that. I thought that it was cool in the third act how it was blatantly apparent that she understood Count Orlok better than she had really been letting on, like the entire movie. I thought that was really cool. I wish that she had I'm surprised, and maybe this is a hole in the film, but I'm surprised that she knew him as well as she did and had the kind of past with him that she did, but didn't question where he was going at all. Because I'm just surprised that those two things didn't coincide at some point, that she didn't figure out, like, I mean, she did try to get him not to go, but I just feel like maybe she could have tried a little bit harder. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to find things that don't exist, but I just felt like it was kind of interesting. Like, she just totally let down the cowl with 20 minutes to go in the film and was like, I know everything about this guy. We used to be a thing. We're not a thing anymore. He's mad about it. He's here. Like, could you not have explained some of this stuff, like, before things got, like, really bad?
Well, did she know that he was going to see him specifically? Did he say Orlok or anything to her?
No, I don't think so.
I'll be honest, I was confused about, like, their whole relationship until toward the very end, because, like, when was their relationship and how did she meet him, period, I think were two questions that the movie never answered, and that, like, really had me confused for a lot of it, to be honest.
So I think Orlok was attached to Lily Rose's character early on in her life, and then when she met Nicholas Hoult, there was some sort of, like, a cast away the darkness to him being involved in life, kind of like if somebody was depressed and met someone that made them feel really good and took away that sorrow. I think that's kind of how that went. But I also am kind of the same. Like, okay, so when did Count figure out that? Because obviously, if he was attached to somebody through the mind or whatnot, he would have known that she just met some dude, and I'm gonna do the same thing that I do in the movie way sooner. So
yeah, that's where it's confusing.
I think there's a lot of weirdness there for sure.
So I don't want to reference Dracula too much. I'm not for this one. I don't even have to. So in the original Nosferatu, if I remember correctly, Thomas goes to visit him as the middleman for Orlok buying property, which is just like Dracula, and he doesn't know Thomas beforehand, and through Thomas understands that he has the beautiful wife, and I mean, he's a sicko, so he wants to prey upon her. He didn't know her prior to meeting Thomas. At least I'm like 99% sure that that was the case, because it's also how Dracula was, where he goes after, it's Jonathan Harker, I think. His wife is who he wants to go after, and again, didn't know about her previously. The psychic connection thing is in the original movie too, but it's only because she knows that her husband's in trouble. When Orlok starts to feed on him at night while he's staying at the castle. So yeah, it was kind of like weird. I don't know. Like I feel like I wanted to know, like, when did this happen, where did it happen, and why did it happen? And like we don't really get all the answers, so I was just kind of confused for a lot of it until toward the very end, and I'm just like, oh, okay, all right. It was a little bit clumsy, I guess. Their backstory, I suppose, is kind of clumsy.
For the most part, I thought he did a great job in that role. Kind of like what you said. Like, he did a really good job being scared. And if I was in that castle, I would be really scared as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think as soon as he arrives and they're doing the scene where they're, like, signing the stuff and, like, communicating about the property, you can tell that he knows almost immediately something is really, really wrong right now. And I need to get myself out of this fast.
Yeah.
And Willem Dafoe, the weird thing is I figured and I thought that Willem Dafoe would elevate the film a lot more than he actually ended up doing. The character that he played, I thought, was kind of put at a disadvantage because nobody really took him seriously. Even like right up to the end of the movie, nobody really seriously. And I think it's hard to play a character like that when nobody really wants to take you seriously or thinks you're insane or whatever. Obviously I'd rather Willem Dafoe be in the movie, but his character didn't exactly he would to the film.
Yeah, he's like the Nosferatu equivalent of like Van Helsing, like the guy that has the mystical knowledge and the answers, but he's not the same as Van Helsing, because like Van Helsing, if he's the guy that gives all the answers to like vampires, and in the original movie Dracula, he has a really interesting standoff with Dracula and like figures out that the guy's a vampire and so on. Willem Dafoe's character is like similar but also way different, because like it takes him like way longer to get to the idea, like the answer that there's like a vampire dude here. And really, he kind of sees him more as like, that's actually where they differ somewhat, which is good. Even though the movie has all the story beats of Dracula, Orlok is like this living pestilence. The whole plague thing is not in Dracula. At least I'm like, again, 99% sure it's not in the book. So like the idea that Orlok is not only a vampire and like thus a murderer and whatnot, but like he literally like brings the plague wherever he goes with these rats, is like another really kind of freaky dimension to it, because he like just takes this whole township to its knees. Like when he arrives, like people are dying in droves because of him. And Willem Dafoe's guy is more focused on like, where's the outbreak of this disease? I gotta find this guy, talk to that guy. He doesn't really get to the idea that it's like, Orlok is like a physical thing that he can go after until pretty much the last part of it, really. Having finally talked to, I forget her character. Is it Helen or Ellie? Depp's character. Helen.
Gotcha.
It's not really until he talks to her that he kind of has like a full idea of like, oh, it's like a dude. we gotta go beat him up.
Right. So, segue into Orlok himself. Your thoughts on the design, the way that he moved, overall thoughts on the
it's great
in the film?
It's still very much evocative of the original 22 film. Like he has the same jacket, for example. Obviously it's modernized, so it's like the jacket's more like he's overall disheveled looking, like he's this living corpse, right? I think that's a cool angle, because like typically like Dracula and whatnot is like depicted as this like kind of gentleman who can blend into society, but then the fangs come out and he's a monster. Whereas Orlok, like the dude cannot walk into a business and buy things. Like it's not gonna happen. He is like this literal walking diseased corpse monster man with the jacket. I think the thick kind of fur jacket really adds to it, makes him look even bigger, more imposing, scarier. Love the fingernails, again, evocative of the original design. The one thing that wasn't really doing it for me was the mustache, though. I ultimately don't think that should have been there. He would have had a more pretty freaky, ghoulish face with that. It takes away from it, in my opinion.
Well, so I had that spoiled for me before I went into the film, that he has that. So I had kind of a lot of time to sulk on that. And of course I hadn't seen the actual character design. I had just heard that, hey, he has this like really clean cut mustache and his hair is falling out. So it's
how
not
does
really
that
balanced
work?
here. Yeah, exactly. So it didn't really affect me at all. I actually thought of the character, and it kind of humanized him a little bit. I don't know, it just didn't really, I was worried that would really take me out of the experience, and it did not really at all, which is good. Not a fan of the stash, huh?
No, I mean, I like the character. I feel like his dialogue, his presence, the way he moves, the way his mysterious powers are, all AAA, quadruple A even, you could say. We're talking some Skull and Bones quality here. It's just the mustache, I just don't really like it. It's not like it's so bad that I'm like, I can't enjoy this. Like, it's not that bad. But I just don't prefer it, I guess. Mostly because I'm sitting there questioning how the hell he even has that. Is he? Yeah, like what's he? Is he still grow hair? Like what's happening?
Yeah, and it's like groomed and clean cut, and like man, is he in the shower? Like I just think it's funny.
I almost would have preferred him to have like an actual like wig and makeup thing or something to explain it, to be like, oh, that's how he talks to people, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think if it wouldn't have been so like clean cut and like kept, I think it would be like if it was like a really stringy, gross one. I think that would have added to the fear factor a lot. But so yeah, strange design, but it didn't really affect me much, which is good because I was concerned about that going into the film. When you talk about him in this film, the word aura just kind of emanates from like every time he's on screen, from when he moves and he's like a shadow on the wall, to when he's teleporting around the room in the scene where they're signing all the stuff. It's just great. I thought it was so good. The way that the boat, when it crashed into the city and the rats come out of it. I mean, like you said, he brought the plague. Like the plague followed him there. All of the scenes on the boat, I absolutely loved.
Oh, little rant here. So, the ship that Dracula takes to get to, I think it's England, in the book, the Demeter, whatever. In the book, it's like this. It's like found footage, basically. It's pretty cool. So the ship kind of just strays. I think it crashes onto the shore, or I don't remember how that gets there, but the ship is found as derelict, and they're like, what happened here? And they find the captain's log, and the whole captain's log is in the book as like this whole little mini story you go down. It's like day 1, things are great and I love being alive. Day 10, the cook disappeared, I don't know what happened to him. Day 20, 5 more dudes disappeared, blah blah. And then the captain ends up like strung to the wheel. He's tied to the wheel so that if he died, he would keep the ship going straight, basically. So they made a movie about that called The Last Voyage of the Demeter, whatever. And I just hated that movie because it just didn't get it. It's the one time where I don't want it to be some kind of creature feature because it's frickin' Dracula. Like, he talks to people in the book. He's not a monster, like a savage beast with no intelligence, but he's treated like that in that movie, and I just hate it so much. He has like 2 lines, and they're just like, "I'm gonna kill you." Like, that's just only dialogue. It's terrible. The movie
You're gonna
is
die.
really well shot and like well acted. One of your Game of Thrones dudes is in that you like. He plays the captain. But just awful. The Nosferatu gets to get away with it being like a little quick kind of horror creature feature thing where you see like he's just decimating this ship night after night, and they have no idea what's going on until it's way too late, which I thought was pretty cool. I like that sequence too. Like that, the 2 scenes on the whatever Nosferatu version of Demeter this is, in my opinion, were better than the whole movie Last Voyage of Demeter itself.
Damn. All right. Well, but yeah, I loved that scene when they popped the trunk and the rats were all in there. I thought that was great. Just kind of the way that the aura that he had whenever he spoke, you could kind of feel it in your bones. The way that he moved, the design of the coat that he was wearing, I absolutely loved. The hands were great.
Yeah.
The way the structure of his head, and I really liked that a lot. I thought it kind of added to the like, this dude is super old and he is not human, and I think that it kind of lent it into that, which was good. Definitely the best character in the film, in my opinion. Kind of set the tone immediately. That was one of the funny things about this film, is it's kind of a slow burn, but it's also like you see him like 5 minutes into the movie, and I did not expect that at all. I expected them to hold him back for a while, and they didn't really do that like at all, which I thought was good. It kind of grabbed you at the beginning of the film, and then they did the story bits. I loved how his boss ended up being a villain. I thought that was, I didn't see that story or not, but I did not see that story bit coming at all, and I thought that was great. The
He's
whole
like
scene
the
with the head off the bird's head was so intense.
He's basically Renfield, because I don't think that Renfield was actually in the original Dracula novel, but he was really popular in the Lugosi movie because he's like the same thing. He's like this psychotic maniac that like ends up doing some murders on Dracula's behalf. So he was definitely like the Renfield equivalent, especially when he's like running around the streets like, "He's coming! My master will soon be here!" I was like, "There's Renfield." That's totally what that is. I thought that was interesting because, again, the original never, at least I don't ever remember thinking that the original had some kind of pre-existing connection between Thomas and his wife before he goes to see Orlok. So it was kind of interesting that like it's all a setup basically. The guy had like done the ritual in his office, and like their whole real estate thing was like, you know, involved or whatever. That was kind of an interesting realization to have as it unfolded like that. And then I loved Thomas going to Orlok's place and like staying at that the inn, and the people are talking about having garlic on the windows.
Yes.
I was like, that's some classic like vampire stuff right here. The village is tortured by Orlok's presence very clearly here.
Well, and it kind of goes back to what I said about aura. Like the film, the first 25-30 minutes really are just setting up him being there, and it does such a good job with that the scene about the garlic and them trying to sacrifice the girl to the corpse or whatever that was. Like that whole, and then when Thomas tries to talk to Orlok about that, and he's like, "Nah, like we're not gonna discuss this like at all." He's like, "I don't want to. We're not worrying about what those weirdos are doing. Like, let's just move on from that." I thought that was really cool. But yeah, the film just like built him up so well, and in so many unique and cool ways.
I liked how their little interactions went, because like in the original Lugosi Dracula film, I don't remember the specifics of the book, but like Dracula's like super pretty nice to it was Renfield in the movie. Like he greets him and he's like, the wolves, they're like children of the night and they sing. Like he's like a nice guy. And I don't remember how Christopher Lee's was. I want to think that he was more standoffish but also courteous. Orlok is just a jerk, like from the outset. Like you said, like something is wrong. Like there is bad vibes in this room with this guy. And like the one time that Thomas tries to like, do a little digging, like tell me about the customs here, Orlok's just like, no.
Yeah.
they're I think his implication is that he doesn't like their rituals because the rituals get in his way. Because like the stuff they're doing kind of prevents him from doing what he wants to do as a vampire. So he's like, we don't talk about them, they're losers. That's why I'm getting out of here anyway. Like I thought it was kind of interesting that he's like so like just kind of like untransparently evil, like even to like Thomas being there. I thought that was kind of a good thing because it just makes him scarier. You're like, this dude has like no qualms about being like rude or creepy or evil in front of this guy, like even though he's got objectives to fulfill with him,
Well, Thomas showed up to his front door, and the first thing he says is, "You're late."
Yeah,
I mean, that's literally
his
the
horse
first thing
got
he
stolen.
So yeah, so they that doesn't start off well, like at all. But yeah, all in all, the character did exactly what I wanted it to, and he definitely had the kind of like the it factor as far as being the centerpiece of the film.
Yes. The ending. I didn't know what to expect with the ending because again, it's a remake, but also it doesn't have to be. Some things were there's a little changes here and there. So I was kind of wondering if it was gonna still have the ending of the original, which yes, it does. With again, I forget her name, Helen, Ellie, whatever.
Sure.
The whole idea of sacrificing herself to basically keep him feeding until the sun comes up, and thus she takes him with her by giving her own life to keep him there. That's how the original one ended too, which I think is a way more interesting finale to what Dracula actually is, which is just the two boys stabbing Dracula with silverware and then he dies.
So right before we go through the end of the film, there's one scene that I to talk through because I thought that it kind of encapsulated the kind of the dread of the entire film. There are some films that are willing to kill kids, and there are a lot of films that are not willing to go anywhere near that. This movie killed a pregnant woman and two young kids. And the scene when the two young kids were killed was incredible. He pretty much he drained the blood of two of the young girls with one of the families that are connected to the main characters, and just the way that scene played out, the way that the slammed open the doors and then just had this blood curdling scream, and the movie cut and you saw one dead child on the floor, and then you saw Count Orlok feeding off of one, and then he just like tosses the kid, and it's just like, wow, okay, this movie just went there. And for me, that was when I was like, okay, this is incredible, because typically stuff like this is kind of off limits, and that was not the case at all here.
Yeah, look, man, they were dead the moment that they were talking about. So we talk about foreshadowing, right? So I was like, oh, the finale of Sonic 3, he's going to have the whole heart moment about whatever. Like, I see what you're doing there. Dude, this is a rated R horror film, and it's by the whole
Robert
vibe
Eggers.
of it. Yeah. Those little girls are like, but there's a monster in our room, Daddy. And he's like, oh, I'll fight him off, don't worry. And then I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. Oh no. When they said that we can hear him breathe, I was like, oh, that just goes back to the aura thing. Like it was just so great the way that they set it up. But anyways, I couldn't let this go without bringing up the fact that whole scene when they killed the two kids. I was just like,
oh yeah,
it's
a terrifying scene, and like it really cements how evil this guy really is. And like I also thought it was a little bit subversive that like I was kind of assuming that what's his name, Aaron Johnson, the guy that
Yeah.
plays their Frederick. I was a little surprised that like Frederick obviously would be super in grieving over that, but I was also kind of assuming that it would like steal his resolve for the climax. That's not what happened. Like
No.
not at all. Which kind of like I was like, I didn't expect that. I thought all the big names were going to be here for the finale, but he didn't make it. Thought that was interesting, but again, like dread's the key word. Like there's so much dread from that.
Yeah. So back to the end. I haven't seen the OG title, so I didn't really know what to expect as far as the end of the film goes. But
He
I
didn't
love
puff into smoke. That's
Really?
The other one ends. Yeah, poof. Yeah, because vampires burn in sunlight, right? So he puffs away his smoke when the sun hits him in the original after he's been feeding on her for too long.
I thought one of the best shots in the entire film was when you saw his clearly lit up face in the sunlight, and the blood was running down his face, and you could hear him screaming, like, because it was practical. The whole thing was.
Yeah.
That shot was so good, and of course there's an emotional tie there because she decided to sacrifice herself so that Thomas would survive, pretty much, and that is, that's a great story, and I thought it was a fine way to end the film. I had seen online that some people were complaining about the end of the film, so I was expecting some sort of like weird scenario where she and Orlok, she drives off to his keep and lives with him, and that's the end of the movie. I was expecting something weird like that.
Yeah.
But no, she just sacrificed herself for her man, and that's cool. That's But we get that really great shot with his face in the sun, and that's more important than whatever nuance there, because it looked so good.
It's a good ending.
And you get a great shot of the stash too.
Yeah. it's that ending is definitely, in my opinion at least, I don't know. In practice, the climax to Dracula could probably be filmed in like a really cool way, but there's no way to escape the disappointment of learning that they just stabbed Dracula with knives and it kills him. You're like, really? So like it's more interesting than that. The original Dracula movie with Bela Lugosi ends with them going to where he's staying, opening up his coffin, and just stabbing him, and that's it. There's no fight. Like he's just like, I'm gonna go back to bed now, you suckers. Don't follow me though. Don't. All right. And then he goes and then they stab him, and it's like, okay, that was easy. The son of the devil, dead. So I think that this is a more impactful ending, and like, it's just more interesting, and like, she gives her life, and there's that tragedy aspect to it. So I think that it's a great ending personally. I definitely prefer that versus like some kind of action movie type thing where they all like kind of tussle with him and then he like gets away and then still dies with her, or they just kill him outright. I don't know. I wasn't sure what to expect when like the boys had gotten together. They're all like, here's the boys going to go take care of business. I was like, what's gonna happen here? We're gonna get like some kind of like cat and mouse thing. They're all gonna, let's split up and look for him. Like, I didn't know where we were going, and I was like, oh man. But luckily it kept the original in that regard, which I liked.
I was hoping for like a just more opportunities for us to see the kind of the unique abilities that vampires in that world had. Like, it would have been really cool if they would have gone to his keep or whatever, and at one point somebody has like a crossbow and they shoot him with it, and then it goes straight to him and he just turns into mist and it goes right through him, and then he comes back. Like, that would have been sick. I would have been so fine with that.
See, I was thinking about that, but that also kind of would have clashed with how grounded this movie has been so far. Like, it's not an action movie.
Right.
I feel like it was better for it not to do that, despite how cool it might have been. Because like his powers are very spooky.
It's very
like,
subtle.
Yeah, like he, his like shadow can like open up a door from the other side, and like He can mess with people's minds. He can like put spells on you. Like he makes Frederick stay asleep, despite the family screaming their brains out the whole time, right? Like he's got very mysterious kind of things. In the book, Dracula could do that. Dracula did do that. He turns into a wolf to run across the yard at one point. I think he turns into like a swarm of rats at one point, and he can turn into fog, like a sinister mist. So he has those abilities in Dracula, but I like that they didn't really, do it in this movie. At least it kind of would have been weird to me.
Well, so I just had a thought. Do you ever see, because he has 2 dogs, like that there's 2 dogs.
I think they're wolves.
Well, right.
Yeah,
Do
like
you ever
hellhounds.
see him and the 2 dogs? I know you see him and 1 dog.
You see him with the dogs.
Okay.
It's in the. It's when Thomas locks himself in the room after failing to stab him, and then the shadow opens the door and he's in the hallway with the 2 dogs.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Because I'm thinking, wow, he's one of the dogs. That'd be really cool.
I would assume he can do that because Dracula can do that, and this is Dracula. So I would assume he has that ability. For all we know, he was one of the dogs chasing the wagon.
That's. I think that he can like see through their eyes, control. I think
Probably.
that's pretty much what that was.
I did have to question how he gets around town though, because like they go and raid his mansion whilst he's in the house. Like, did they not cross paths? Like, even if it's by 1 street difference, like, can he just teleport like a mile away? Like, that's the one part I didn't quite get, because Dracula in the book and the movie like clearly has to go to the place. Even if he's a bat, he still has to get there. Whereas Orlok seems like he just teleport wherever he wants to go. Which made me wonder how effective their plan to like burn the house down really would have been if he can just teleport into the house and be safe from the sun or whatever. I don't know.
Well, what they were trying to do is they were trying to burn his coffin so he had nowhere safe to sleep. That's what they were trying to do.
But it's still there if you light it on fire, because it didn't seem to be made of wood. I'm just saying, because the whole gimmick in the book with that is that Dracula has to travel on the earth of his homeland. So the coffin contains soil from Transylvania. Burning it, in theory, wouldn't do anything, because you can't burn dirt. It would still be in the coffin. That's why he had to be in the coffin traveling on the ocean, because he had to be on the earth of his homeland. That's still true for Orlok. They also didn't show it, but in the original movie, Orlok also had multiple coffins that just had rats inside of them. The rat thing I thought was pretty great.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I watched an interview with the cast, and they were asked, "Are the rats real?" And
oh no,
they said, "Yeah, every one of them." And it's like, that's
rats,
crazy.
Rats don't creep me out, to be honest. I don't find rats scary like at all.
Well, same here, but I love how they're used in this movie.
Visually, I think they're used excellently because. Number one, it's very frightening to see the boat crashed and the rats are just pouring out of it, and they're like, oh, it's a plague ship. Like, we are so screwed. And then when they're in the manor and they light the torches and it's just this floor of rats in the room, it's like, geez. Like, it's pretty cool. I like the idea that he's this, like, living disease, basically. It's a nice angle on, like, what is generally a very tired genre full of cliches. Pretty cool. All in all, I liked it quite a bit. I think I agree with you. It could have been cut short, probably 15, 20 minutes even. There's a lot of lingering shots, long shots. Not everything had to be there. Slow burn for sure, but I liked it a lot.
The first segment in the castle, I thought was longer than it needed to be. Like, there were multiple occurrences where it went back to that, and I was just like, how long is he gonna be here? Like, what are we doing here? Because I just thought that we would get more of the cityscape and more of Lily Rose Depp, and really in the first half of the film you really don't get a lot of that, like Thomas' story about going to his place and kind of the journey there, and then when you get there, all the things that kind of occur there. at that point, when it's going back to the city, it's about the crazy boss that's eating birds. So it was kind of a strange kind of beginning for me a little bit, but it certainly didn't do enough to like hurt the film. You know, for me, the only real criticism that I have, like you just said, I thought it was a little too long.
Yeah, I would agree. The original Dracula has it right. It's like an hour long. Perfect.
Wow. I mean, I think it could have been like an hour and 40 minutes.
How long
There was
was
a couple times where I was 2 hours and 14 minutes. So maybe 2 hours on the dot. I don't know. But if that's the only thing that I'm worried about on the film, that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
All the parts in the film. So yeah, loved it. Really hit every beat that I wanted it to. The Orlok character was handled really well. Great cast. Yeah, it was great. I liked it a lot.
Fun for the whole family. This holiday season, Count Orlok is coming to town.
Oh. Right. Hide your two daughters.
Oh no! Hide your kids, hide your wife. Orlok is in the town.
Yeah, he's looking through windows.
Oh, you know what? I guess he didn't have forbiddance. That wasn't a thing. Having to be invited in homes, clearly not an issue for him.
No, but she did have to willingly submit to him, which I thought was a cool story bit.
Which, is it... Why? The little girl surely didn't provide permission.
Well, so there's one weird thing that I thought was strange. So, do you remember when he told Lily Rose Depp's character that he sold her to him?
Yeah, it's a wedding contract he signed.
He tried to create a rift between the two of them to make her mad at him, and it didn't work at all. And I just thought that was kind of a weird thing for Orlok to do. I mean, I understand it, but I think it humanizes the character a little bit too much. Because that's kind of a foolish thing to do. Like, why does a vampire want that? I'm sure he could do other things with that, but I don't know. I thought that was a strange.
He ever so briefly became Count Olaf from a series of unfortunate events. Because that's what happens at the end of that movie. He's trying to trick this person into marrying him to Violet Beauregard, who's like a 16-year-old girl for her fortune. That's basically what happened. Yeah, I thought that the idea was I didn't even think about like a rift. I guess that makes more sense now. I was just like, is that his backup plan? He's like, even if you don't submit willingly, you're still legally my wife per this document. I was like, right. What is that about?
Yeah. I don't know. But great film, and I hope it does well. For sure.
I do too. I liked it quite a bit. Definitely do Nosferatu. Do it. I'm not sure which one you should watch first. I mean, I feel like ending with Sonic probably makes more sense. But I don't know. It's an interesting pairing.
Definitely an interesting pairing for sure. It's been fun. It's been great too because we normally don't get really the chance to go out to theaters a bunch. So the fact that we got to see these two right at the end of the year is great.
Yeah, definitely. We will be looking forward to what comes next. Superman in the summer, I think, is the next big thing to look forward to, and we'll also have to see if we get a Sonic show at some point. But I think most of all, I want to track Nosferatu's performance here and see how it does, because like you, I think it's important that it succeeds, because it is a very artistic film that I like to see do well.
Agreed.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.